Welcome to another e-Sword tip on the e-SwordTraining YouTube channel. In this tip, we're going to be looking at the arrangement of Bibles in the e-Sword application. Now, if you're like me, you may have been frustrated at times by the way the tabs are organized within e-Sword. It does it in a seeming random way, and it seems that way because at first you might think it's alphabetical. Notice I've got BGB and then BIB and then BIB plus and BIB plus plus. But then all of a sudden, I've got ABPGNT. This is the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, New Testament. It's actually the whole Bible in Greek, the Septuagint of the Old Testament, and basically the majority text or Textus Receptus or received text of the New Testament. But the point is that it seems that this should be the very first one in my list if it's purely alphabetical. Well, here's the thing to keep in mind. It is alphabetical, but it's alphabetical based on the file names of the modules and not based on these short names for the tabs, which really, if you think about it, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would make a lot more sense if it was arranged alphabetical by the tab names, but that is the way it is configured. Now, here's the interesting thing. You can rearrange them by simply changing the module names. For example, if I go to my folder where I have e-Sword installed, and this happens to be an installation of e-Sword just for these videos, I have multiple installations of e-Sword on my computer, and you can too. I'll have another tip at a later time on how to install multiple copies of e-Sword. You might want one copy for one kind of study and another copy for another. And that's very convenient because you can just keep the modules that you want for that kind of study. But notice in the folder, all of the Bibles are here. And here's the key thing. The Apostolic Bible Polyglot is actually Greek ABP+. Because of that, it is organized here in e-Sword so that it comes after the ESV plus because it comes that way alphabetically. So what I can do, if I want to move something to the front, let's say I want the ESV to be the first one. Here in my folder, I can simply rename this file to 01 ESV. And that will move that file to the front of my list. To show you this, I'm going to go ahead and stop and restart e-Sword. Now that e-Sword is restarted, notice the ESV is the first Bible in the list. So this is a simple way that you can rearrange them. I do want to warn you about one thing. The KJV and KJV Plus modules, if you rename them, you're going to get a really weird behavior out of e-Sword. It's going to go through a Windows setup process after you're done and tell you you've got to reboot your computer because those are built-in modules and e-Sword does something odd with it. However, I have gotten it to work by renaming them and then going ahead and rebooting the computer and just living through that pain. But if you don't want to do that, all you have to do is get another King James version of the Bible and install it into e-Sword, and that one can be renamed. For example, I have here the King James Bible Pure Cambridge Edition. If you didn't know it, there are two different versions primarily of the King James Bible, the Cambridge and the Oxford edition. They differ in 3 places in their text. I'm not going to get into all of that here and which one's right and wrong in those 3 places. That's not the purpose of this video. But what I want you to understand is you can get another version of the King James Version at someplace like BibleSupport.com, and then that one can be renamed. So if I go back to my folder and I find that Cambridge edition of the King James Version, right here it is, and I make that one 00, maybe I want it first in my list. Now watch what happens when I restart e-Sword. You can see now that e-Sword is restarted that the Cambridge edition of the King James Version is here to the left, and then ESV, and then the rest of my Bibles. Now notice KJB did not stay over here, and ESV did not stay over here. So that's important to keep in mind. It's not leaving it in both places. It's only going to one place, and it's based on those file names. Well, let me go ahead and go back to my folder. I'm going to reset both of these to their default names. And I'm going to show you another option that you have. So with those reset, let's restart e-Sword and make sure that everything's back to normal. And now that I've restarted e-Sword, you can see that everything is back in the place where it was before. So I'm just cutting out the closing and restarting to save time in the video. You can see then that that is one way to reorganize things. But there is another. Another alternative for rearranging your Bibles is actually available at BibleSupport.com. And that's the e-Sword Library Manager version 1.5. All this tool does is it lets you rename those files automatically. By dragging and dropping, you can reorganize things. So go ahead and download it. If you don't have an account, you'll need to create an account. It's free to do so. And then you can get started with this. Now, let's take a look at this particular tool. So here I've launched the e-Sword Library Manager. An important thing to make sure you're careful of with this is that you actually use this in the right way. So when you click Browse, the first thing you do is choose your actual install directory. Now I have e-Sword installed in a few places. I want to get the right one. So I'm going to choose my e-SwordTraining 1 folder and click OK. It looks like nothing happens because the next thing you need to do is choose your category. You can rearrange the tabs for Bibles, commentaries, dictionaries, and so forth. I'm just going to choose Bibles. And now we see this order that is here. And you can also see I've hidden one. So it doesn't even show up in e-Sword. If I select it again and click OK, it'll bring that one back. Now what I can do is rearrange things. So I might want to move my ESV to the top of the list, as well as the ESV plus Strong's. And then I can go down and choose my King James Bible, and we'll move that to the very top. And then maybe I want my Lexham English Bible to move up. So I'm keeping my English Bibles at the top of the list. Again, don't worry about moving the KJV BBLX or KJV plus BBLX because those are the defaults and the program won't even touch them anyway. Okay, so I've got my King James, then my ESV, and so forth. Now I could further reorganize these others, but I really just want you to see what this program does for me. So I click Save Current Order. And now I'm going to launch e-Sword so you can see the result. Now look at the beautiful results now that I'm back in e-Sword. The King James Version is first, then ESV, ESV Plus, Lexham English Bible, Young's Literal Translation, and then the rest. And I could organize these in any way that I want. Let me show you one last thing about that application. Here in the e-Sword Library Manager, which is the free download from BibleSupport.com, you can change the tab names. So if you don't like something on a tab, maybe you want them to be smaller, maybe you want them to be bigger. For example, you might see something like the SBL GNT that I have installed. That's the SBL Greek New Testament. You might want to spell that out more, or you might just want to have it say SBL so that it is shorter, or SGNT. That'll make a smaller tab so more tabs can fit on your screen display. So the point is, you just double click in the tab name and type an alternative abbreviation. So if I didn't want ESV, but I wanted something else, I would type it there. And then you can type an alternative description. When you do that, keep in mind that in some cases for it to work, you need to run this program as an administrator. So just right click on the program shortcut and select Run as Administrator. And then you'll be able to change the tab names and descriptions for all of the different Bibles. Well, I hope this video has been beneficial to you, and I look forward to seeing you here next time on the e-SwordTraining channel.